here. Okay, so I've run out of content on YouTube for a while, I guess. So I've turned to just Google and see what pops up and, things that I could talk about. This one's actually older, but worth a dive into this one. It's from let's see, 2012, back when I think we thought the world was going to end. I don't know. Every year the world's going to end, so whatever. Anyway, so I thought I'd read through this and respond to it. Anyway, so the question is, why do Christians and other people of other faiths think that belief based on faith is better than belief based on evidence? So Aron Yu, engineering grad student, at least that's what he's saying, says this answer. Now, we're gonna, does he answer the question? No. Well, but let's read it. Okay. I've read through most of the posts and comments made to sure I understand what you're asking. Hopefully I got it right. From what I understand, you're asking, why does God want the belief in him to be faith-based instead of evidence-based, proof-based? Well, no. I think that the question is, the question is assuming certain things. I would object to the phrasing of the question, but let's try to steel man the question before we break it down logically, because it would be easy to break it down logically, and that might overanalyze it, and then we might miss the question. So I'm assuming that Christians think that faith is better than evidence. Is that the case? And other people of other faiths think that faith is better than evidence. Is that true? Would be a better way to phrase this question, perhaps. Do they think this? And why do they think that, if they do think this? Or why is it that it seems that they mention faith so often, they talk about faith so much? There's other ways, perhaps better ways to phrase the question. Okay. There could be any number of answers to that question. Anyways. Led you to ask the other question, why is faith-based belief better than evidence/proof-based belief? And why doesn't God just prove his existence using concrete evidences? I'll be answering this question from a Christian's point of view. Well, you'll be answering from your point of view. You happen to be a Christian, but other Christians have other points of view. Anyways, first let's define what we're comparing here. Good idea. These definitions from dictionary.com. Evidence, something that makes it plain or clear. Proof, evidence sufficient to establish this thing as true. Active testing. Faith, confidence or trust in a person or thing. Belief that is not based on proof. I'll be talking about evidence and proof as one, since their definitions are very similar. Very well. Okay. What was the evidence-based belief you were thinking of when you asked this question? A scientific proof that proves the existence of God? A miracle that convinces everyone in the world that God exists? For this question, I'll assume that the evidence-based belief to be something proven by the scientific method, since it brings in the testing aspect for the definition of proof, and it'll also satisfy the scientific community. And to simplify my explanations later, I'll call this human evidence. Okay. What was the faith-based belief that you were thinking of when you asked this question? I'll assume here that you were thinking of something close to the definition belief that is not based on proof. I'll modify this a little by defining it as belief that is not based on human evidence. Okay. Now, I'll make two short overarching comments. Please allow me to finish explaining both comments before you draw any conclusions, as they're tied into each other. Well, I'm not going to, but whatever. A faith-based belief is stronger, more rooted than an evidence-based belief, and God did not provide us with many evidences, something that makes it plain or clear, but maybe not in the form of human evidences. The most important point to understand here is that God is a relational God. Here we go. Not just any relationship, but a personal love relationship, unique to each one of us. Knowing God is to have this personal love relationship with Him. Seeking God is to continue developing this personal love relationship with Him. Okay, now we know that he is speaking from his view as a Christian. So, how do you know that God is any of these things that you're saying that God is? And the only answer to that question is you don't know this, you believe it because it is written in the Bible somewhere, or there's several parts written in the Bible that you have assembled a doctrine, a teaching around that teaches that this is what God is. There's verses that indicate to you that this is how God functions. Okay. So we're assuming that your version of how to understand the Bible, which is somebody else's version of how they understood the Bible, which is based on their version of a version of a version of the Bible, that all of that got it right. That whole scene has gotten it right somehow. And that we're assuming, on top of that assumption, on top of assumptions, that you understand the actual way to understand God based on those other assumptions that we're having to make. That's a lot of assuming going on. Okay, because we have to assume that you got it right, that you got the interpretation right of the verses, that the person that wrote the Bible got it right when they wrote it, and that your understanding is correct in order to think that anything you've said about God is even close to being true or correct. Why would we assume any of that? There's no reason. Is this answering the question? No, not really. But let's continue anyways. Number one, if God were simply to do something miraculous, something that fits within human evidence, okay, that can convince anyone of his existence, we would miss out the process of seeking him and the process of building this love relationship with him. Okay, but there's a problem. I miss out on that process because I don't think that there's a God at all. So the system that you think God has established is one that I will always be left out of. Why would that be? What motive, what reasoning, what logic is your version of God using to enact a world where a lot of people will be left out of even starting on this journey to look for God because they simply don't have human evidence of God? So then there has to be something wrong with your assumption that God wants a relationship with everyone. God must only want a relationship with some people and not every person. Because if God wanted a relationship with every person, then there would be evidence that I require to think that something is even a thing, which you are calling human evidence in this. So there would be human evidence of God in the first place. I can't go seek something that I don't believe in. I can't do anything at all in regards to this being that I don't believe in because this being hasn't given me human evidence. And I'm a human and I need evidence. And if I don't seek it, then how could I have a process of building any relationship with it, let alone one involving love? Okay. we would know the existence of this God, but we wouldn't know him personally or experience his love for us. Right. So if God was so evident that there wasn't a doubt in our minds that God existed, then we could, I don't know, talk to it. And it would talk back like a human does. I say hi to someone, and they say hi back. And we can establish a dialogue and then a relationship of some sort. Why isn't God like that? Well, because he's not. Well, but then how how do I know it's a thing? Yeah, I wouldn't know him personally, but I could get to know him personally. Right now, I can't even get to know him because he isn't giving me the ability to even believe that he's a thing in the first place. So he's locking me out of this relationship because he's not giving me human evidence, and I need the human evidence. So you're saying, well, if he did it the way that you're wanting to, you would miss out on this or this aspect. So what? You would still have the other aspects. So apparently, your God doesn't want to give me human evidence at all. It wants me to look for it without any human evidence and then find it somehow and then love it on its terms, even though there's no way for me to know it's even a thing. That sounds like faith to me. And yeah, he's saying this is not Christianity. This is true blind faith. Oh, okay. So that's not Christianity, really. Okay. Okay, so if God was to do it, you couldn't then you wouldn't know him personally or experience his love for us. Well, but you would know God existed. Yeah, it's true. If we knew God existed, Christianity wouldn't be a thing anymore. I mean, whatever was the truth nature of God, I would think know that by now. Somebody would go interview God and find out what's going on. And then we could form a relationship with it. So we could know it personally, and we could experience their love for us. So how is it that giving us absolute evidence of itself would negate us from being able to experience love or and any of this? Just there is no, okay. But in reality, well, according to you, God wants us to pursue him and seek him. He gave us freedom not to believe. Oh, here we go again. So that we can go through the process of believing in him and experience his love and his presence personally. Okay. So this is that I've seen this before, and many of you, my friends, fans, robots, lovers, potential lovers, whatever you are, I'll be serious, and it's just nobody is my lover. Nobody will be my. I'm single and alone. Oh, sorry. Get focus on the thing. Stop wallowing in self pity. Okay, it's the God's Not Dead 4 movie's fault. Okay, all right. You don't have freedom in regards to what you believe or not, or how you believe in things. I just don't. I don't buy into that idea. I don't think that it's true, and I've made this point, but it's worth making again. Okay, if you see something in front of your face, and I go, here it is. Here's a lobster, and the lobster pinches your nose. It's really going to be hard for you to pretend to not or to say I don't believe that lobster is there. I mean, could you really force yourself to not believe that the lobster's there? Maybe Maybe you have a brain that's capable of doing that, but I doubt that. I doubt that there is a brain capable of doing that. And then if there is a brain capable of doing that, then basically there's a brain capable of turning on and off reality at their whim. They can say, no, I don't believe that lobster is there, even though there's ample evidence of it being there. I can see it, I can smell it, I can taste it, I can touch it. It's pinching my nose, that hurts. And yet I'm going to insist that this lobster is not there and simply believe it's not really there, because that's just how awesome my brain is. Bing, it's not there anymore. Well, how's your nose feel? My nose feels fine, but it's just bit it off. You don't even have a nose anymore. Yes, I do. I still have a nose. What are you talking about? There's no lobster there. Okay. So then the opposite is like, I don't have anything in my hand. And you go, oh, look, you have a lobster. Ah, it's pinching my nose. I'm like, no, I don't. There's nothing. I'm holding up an empty hand. No, it's got me. Ah. Like, wow, you've made yourself believe in something that isn't there. That's an amazing power you have. Why would God want you to pretend that it's there? Because that's what you have to do. You don't have a freedom to believe or not. That's not a thing. That's where faith comes in. The faith I'm talking about here is from Hebrews 11:1 that says, now faith is sure of what we have hoped for and certain of what we do not see. Right. It's the same. That is blind faith. That doesn't, I don't understand. Well, okay. I don't understand why Christians don't understand this. It's a lot of not understanding, okay? But I was a Christian once. And this thing in the Bible when I was a Christian made sense to me. I was like, yes, faith is having hope even though there's no reason to have hope. It's things will get better. For me, that is the sum total of faith, because I had many personal experiences throughout life. But I'll just talk a little bit about this if you don't mind, and even if you do mind, I'm going to anyways. When I was younger, my mom and I were basically broke. We didn't have any place to be, and she had a bundle of money that was like a nest egg, and kept it in her sock inside the shoe. Like if somebody tries to get it, they're gonna have to kill her to get it, kind of thing, because that's all we've got. And so we stayed in different really cheap hotels, motels, cheapest ones we could find, until at last she did find us a shelter and got on Section 8 and finally got us a place to be. She fought tooth and nail every bit of the way to get us out of that situation. She did that work. Along the journey, we were walking it seemed like an infinitely long sidewalk. And I said, things will get better. And I kept repeating things will get better out loud to my mom. That's what faith is. Faith is believing that things will get better, even though you have no idea if they will or will not get better. And at some point along, different day, different time, whatever, I turned to my mom and I said, I need you to be the one that tells me, Faith, that things will get better. I need you to be the one that tells me things will get better, because I had run out of the oomph to do that. She told me things will get better. And so we marched on, we carried on with that hope. That's what faith is. There's a utility to that sort of faith. Keeps you going. But you still have to do the work. You can't just sit back and go, oh, things are going to get better and magically they will. You must do the work. And that's what my mom did to get us out of that situation. An amazing, amazing person. Strength and resolve that I wish I had. That sort of faith, I understand. But that is blind faith. It is blind faith. There is no evidence for it. And although it's useful in some situations, it is not rational or logical. It is not scientific. You do not, for a fact, know that things will get better. You hope that things will get better. But Christians seem to read this, and it seems to me that they're like, see, our definition of faith is different than your idea of what faith is. Therefore, it's a different sort of faith. It's not. Your definition of faith is still blind faith. That's what it is. The Bible tells you that faith is blind. It's right there. It's being sure of what you hope for and certain of what you don't see, what you don't have evidence for. That is blind faith. Faith provides us with the ability to move beyond our physical limitations. No, it doesn't. You are always constrained by your physical limitations. End of story there. What we do not see, to establish a love relationship with someone beyond our physical understanding. Well, now you're extrapolating a whole lot from this verse, but whatever. Okay. No, it's the ability to establish a love relationship. The thing is, it's not beyond your physical understanding. You're told that it is, but you've already described a lot about what God is, so it can't completely be beyond physical understanding. Otherwise, you couldn't ever describe it. So some of it is, but not all of it. Anyways, as we go through the process of seeking and knowing him through faith, he reveals his love to us, or rather we begin to recognize the presence of him, and this love has always been there from the beginning. Well, no. What you do is you begin to rewrite how your brain works. That's how any of this actually works. How do you have a relationship with no feedback at all? Well, I'll tell you how. You tell your brain that you're having a relationship, and your brain begins to have a relationship. And your brain compartmentalizes some of itself and labels that self God, and you start talking to yourself, but that other self is God. And your brain tells you that's not you, that it's God. And from the inside, it seems like you're talking to God, but you're not. You're talking to yourself, but you don't know that inside. From the outside looking in, you might discover that that's true. But from the inside looking out, it seems to be true. Your brain begins to tell you a lie because you've fed your brain the lie so much that your brain's like, well, you're telling me to do this. You're telling me that I'm talking to somebody, but there's no one here, so you must want me to develop a person for you to talk to. And so it does. Your brain makes a thing for you to talk to. It's just you. It's always been you. That's what God is. It's you. You are the God. That's how it works. Therefore, by walking in faith, having a faith-based belief, we get to experience God fully and develop this personal relationship with Him. Well, you didn't really explain much of anything. You just said this is how it is, I guess. Anyways, it yields a much stronger, deep-rooted belief than human evidence-based belief. Well, it may or may not. I don't know, and there should be some way to test at least if that's true. Is it true that a relationship with something that I cannot verify with human evidence is more powerful than a relationship that I can create that is based on human evidence? There should be some way to demonstrably demonstrate that that idea is true. But we're not here to do that. We're still trying to answer this question if you like faith more than evidence, and it seems like your answer is that's what God wants. Seems like that's what his answer is, but we'll go on. Christianity is about the journey and the process. Furthermore, God provides us with the necessary tools: Bible, church, fellow brothers and sisters in Christ, etc. Yes, but God also provides you with tools from other religions and other people that believe in those religions. So how am I supposed to know which one is correct? You're just assuming from your perspective that you've got it right, but how do I, as the outsider, know which one is right? To guide us in our journey. But I won't go any further since I'll get too much in detail about the necessity of faith, which you specifically mentioned not to talk about. Right. So, whatever. Anyways. Number 2, now to elaborate on the faith-based belief, I'm going one step further to say that God has provided us with the evidence of his existence, but it might not be the form of human evidence that we naturally look for. Okay, so he's given you evidence, but it's not evidence. What? All right. Through my personal walk with God, he has revealed his presence, poured out his love for me over and over again, oftentimes in the most unexpected fashion. So what you're talking about here is during life, you go throughout stuff, you do stuff, and you're like, hey, I think that was God. It must have been God. God helped me get through that situation. Thanks, God. But it's not God. It's just you. But you think it's God, so you attribute it to God. And you're like, oh, that's so amazing. And God loves me so much, and it's just you loving you. It's all it is. That's all. That's it. But here comes the true evil of Christianity. Oh, man. Okay. I always fall short because of my sinful nature. Yeah. You're never good enough. You're in an abusive relationship, is what you are. I just fell short of God's glory. I'm sorry, God, I wasn't good enough. It's like God is an abusive partner. He abuses you. You're no good. You're crap. You're scum. And you have to say, yes, I agree. And you have to come back over and over again to God, begging for forgiveness as he kicks you away and says, you're no good, you're no good, you're no good, and constantly apologizing, constantly saying you're sorry. Vile. Anyways, I would call these life evidences. Well, that would still be human evidence since you're, well, whatever. They're unique to each of us due to the uniqueness of personal love relationship with God. But it's not unique. Not really, because it's a particular type of God within a particular type of system. So, and with a particular type of Bible. So it's kind of unique, but it's also not. Anyways, one note here is that God provided those evidences not to convince us of his existence, but to confirm his existence for us. That makes no damn sense at all. If you're convinced, then it's been whatever. Fuck it. One when one shares about their testimony, they're sharing us unique life evidences God provided in their life. You've listened to those testimonies. They're in the form of life stories. That's because they're accounts of personal love relationship with God, blah, blah, blah. They're just stories and coincidences, but non-believers. Yes, exactly. So why would it be that God is having this system where the non-believers like, yeah, that's just a story or that's just a coincidence? So why are you not giving why are there non-believers at all? Anyways, life evidences are not repeatable in the human evidences because they are about life events which could not be repeated to begin with. Right, it's all subjective and it's in your mind. It's not really happening for real. You're just pretending it's happening. Got it. So it's blind faith. So why do you want blind faith more than you want evidence? Who knows? Well, maybe they'll say. Therefore, the faith-based belief that Christians have is evidence-based as well, but it's not evidence-based. It's based on this thing that you're calling life evidence, which is just your personal feelings that you can't confirm. So it's not evidence-based. It's an equivocation of what evidence is to a subset of things. Basically, it's faith. So you don't have evidence, you have faith. Not in human evidences, but in life evidences. Right. So you don't, it's faith with reason. No, it's faith with faith. You just redefine what everything means so that you can pretend that it has reason, even though it doesn't. Even the life evidence might not be reduced exactly, they're just as real or more real than human evidence as well. There has been interesting studies about this in neurology. I can't think of the guy offhand that does this. Andrew Newberg, I think it is. And he's done a lot of this, and he comes up a lot in apologetic stuff from time to time. He'll show up. And he has demonstrated using neurology that people will say that the experience that they have, it feels more real than reality. So their brain is telling them that it's more real. And this can be produced by meditation or medication. So somebody can feel like the trip that they're having while on LSD or whatever the bleep it is, that's more real than reality. But we know it's not more real. This is as real as things get, no matter what your brain is telling you. Anyways, once you put your faith in God, you walk your journey with Him, He confirms its existence to us unique, unexpected way through life experiences, unless He doesn't, you should say. Once you believe it, then you'll believe it. Once you believe it, then you'll confirm that it's true. Once you believe in magic, then you'll see magic everywhere. It's a lifelong journey because there's a lifelong relationship to build with God. You mean yourself. Final thoughts. To summarize, Christianity about this personal love relationship with God. Faith allows us to build this personal love relationship, whereas human evidence neglects this process entirely. How does it neglect that process? I don't see that. You didn't show that that's true in your little essay thing here. Oh well. God confirms His existence and love to us through life evidences, if you say so, which in turn strengthens our faith with Him. We constantly need faith to progress on the journey. So you need lots and lots of faith. God, and we're all still sinners. Can't forget that. We continue seeking and learning through Him until faith all time is earth. Nope, I'm not discounting evidences completely. I believe that some evidences do support the existence of God, but they don't directly help in the building of the personal love relationship. Lastly, I thank you for asking this question. It's not. I'm. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. You have to seek out the tools God's provided us. Talk to strong Christians. How do you know if they're strong Christians versus weak Christians? Like, how would you identify them in real life and listen to their testimonies, or not. It's tied to other Christian concepts. Blah blah blah. Okay. Did he answer what they were asking? No, they didn't. Why is it that you like faith more than evidence? Well, because that's how God wants it. That's it. That's your answer is That's how God made everything. This dude is just a reminder how precious it is to build skills for thinking clearly. Yeah, well, yes. So, not only did this answer not answer the question, but the answer produces more questions, which is why I wanted to read it and talk about it. Okay, so let me attempt, if I may, to answer the question the way it's phrased. Well, first, let me go ahead and do the thing that I do with logic. Okay. Why do Christians and other people of other faiths think that belief based on faith is better than belief on evidence? Well, you have assumed that this is true. This is a loaded question. So we need to reconstruct your question, because the way it is framed right now, the answering of it agrees with the premise that it is true that Christians and other faiths believe that faith is better than evidence. So if we want to say that's not true, then we need to rewrite the question. So, do Christians and other people of other faiths think that belief based on faith is better than belief based on evidence? That's the way you rephrase the question. And the answer is, I don't know. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. What you would need to do is some sort of survey to, I don't know, hundreds, 10,000 people at least. That'd be a decent sample size. And ask them, do you value faith more than evidence? And you might leave that question open to interpretation, or you might further define faith and evidence so you get more data, and so there's many problems with that sort of polling, but you're going to get some sort of result that you then have some data that you can extrapolate from. There's always problems with polling, because the way that you ask the question, people will answer it differently. They might answer it just in a silly way to try to mess the thing up. There's all sorts of problems with polling, and it's very difficult to find out what people think and feel and believe, no matter how you go about it. That's a difficult thing to do. Okay. Is it true that in Christianity specifically, you don't have evidence, you just have faith? There's a different question to ask. And the answer I would give is, it is true. You do not have evidence. And many times I've said, you just have bad arguments. There isn't evidence here, just bad arguments. Here's proof of God. And I'll say, oh, by proof, you mean bad arguments, because you don't offer proof. You don't have proof. You have bad arguments. You don't have evidence. You don't have tests. You have a personal experience that every other person from every other cult and belief has. That's what you have. They are identical from the outside looking in. So I knew this guy. Well, a little bit. I knew this guy. Okay, we're done with that for now. He believed that putting these little crystals that he carried with him around him on the bed got him to sleep. And I don't know, I guess they protected him or something during sleep. I don't know, but they helped him to sleep. So he put the crystals around him, and then you go to sleep. Okay, well, the placebo effect explains what's going on here. If we were to switch out the crystals with just rocks, and he didn't notice, it would still work the same way. There is nothing going on that's actually the crystals helping you to sleep better. It is you putting onto these things properties they don't actually really have. You are pretending, you are believing that the crystals will help you to fall asleep. And then they do because you've believed it. So but it could be anything. It could be rocks. It could be nothing at all. You don't even have to put anything there. Your belief that the crystals are doing something can make the crystals do that in a way. But there's a limit. There's always a limit. Always a limit. No matter how much you believe that the crystal that you got will make it so that you can levitate, you will never actually levitate. Now, maybe you will believe that you've levitated. So what you do, you set up a camera and you record yourself. You're like, I've got this crystal and I know it's going to help me to levitate because I've felt it. I've felt my body getting weightless and lifting out of the chair. And so they're closing their eyes, they're holding the crystal. I'm getting weightless. Oh, I did it. And then they look at the camera and they look at the recording. And there they are, just sitting on the chair. They haven't moved an inch. It's like, well, you can't see it. I was lifted off the chair like a half an inch. Okay, so you zoom in. Oh, really? No, they didn't move. They didn't budge. Well, it's my spirit that's being lifted out of me, not my physical body. Oh, okay. So it's something we can't demonstrably demonstrate at this point. Because they want to keep the belief that the crystal is enabling them to do this thing. They don't want to give up that because it feels good to believe that. It feels nice. They enjoy feeling weightless. They don't want to give up that belief, so they're not going to give up the belief. They're going to make up new things to justify that belief, and they're going to say that it's reasonable. And at the end of the day, they're going to say, you're just a pesky skeptic. You don't have an open mind. Whatever. Let me believe what I want to believe. And they'll walk away and they'll be mad at you. And that'll be the end of that, right? That's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's exactly the same for every other belief that's out there. It is exactly the same pattern. You're told that the thing is true. You've learned that the thing is true. And you felt like the thing is true. And your brain is telling you that the thing is true. You've invested a lot of time and energy into this. And it's going to hurt mentally. It's going to hurt. Maybe even physically, it's going to hurt to try to not believe this anymore. For myself, I know how much it hurt deconverting. It hurt. It was, there was points where dying seemed preferable than going on. Because I was in such anguish of having to give up on these ideas that I thought were true for most of my life. It hurt. And so I understand why the theist, why the believer in other things that are out there wouldn't want to go through that. I completely do. And I don't want anyone to have that sort of pain. But I would love if they could just admit to themselves and everyone else that it's faith. There isn't any evidence. There isn't any proof. Not a little. Not any. Not at all. So why is it that you have chosen, or why is it that your brain is the way that it is, where you like belief more than evidence? Who knows? There might not be a way to answer that question. It's just that maybe some people's brains are constructed in such a way that they are more likely to believe in God than not. And maybe they're built in such a way, built, of course, is the wrong phrase, but hopefully nobody takes that out of context, that the brain has developed in such a way that you can't not believe in God. Maybe that's the case. And maybe it's the case that other brains are have developed in such a way that they can't believe in God, which makes sense based on what we understand of biological evolution. That makes perfect sense. Of course, different brains would be different. But it makes zero sense if there's an actual thing that created us this way. Because you can't really make logical sense out of that. Because you have to assume a whole lot of things, but let's at least assume that the thing that made us is logical and rational. Okay. It used evolution for some reason to get us to this point, although there's no way that it could have known that we would have gotten to this point using evolution, unless somehow it did know, and it used this weird system to get us here that took a while and a lot of death. So, okay, we can know that the thing doesn't mind using a weird system to get us to the point that we are. That it doesn't mind waiting millions of years. That it doesn't mind death. Death doesn't matter to it. Suffering doesn't matter to it. We've already learned some things about the thing that made us. We're pretending, of course, that there is a thing that made us, but nonetheless, we learned at least that this thing doesn't care that it used evolution. It doesn't care about the suffering of all the things. Doesn't care that death was required. All it cared about was getting us here. Okay, now we're here. Now what? Well, it knew that some of us would be able to believe in a God and some of us wouldn't be able to believe in a God, and that others would be able to switch back and forth or any other combination thereof. And apparently it doesn't care that that's the case because it didn't change things so that it wouldn't be the case. It's fine. So it doesn't care what we believe. Because if it did care, and we're assuming that it's a rational being, which already I'm not sure that it is a rational being given that it doesn't care about pain and suffering, but okay, it's rational, it's just amoral. That the only conclusion I could draw based on the facts of the world as they are presented to us in actuality is that if I was to, for whatever reason, posit a thing that created humans, that it doesn't care what we believe or if we don't believe, period. It doesn't care at all. And if you attempt to have a relationship with it, there is zero way to know whether or not you've successfully established a relationship with the real God or one that your brain made up for you. There's no way to distinguish between the two. We haven't invented a machine that could do that, apparently. So everything that you think about your creator is all based on pure speculation, faith. You just believe that it's true. Maybe you don't even know why I believe it's true. Why do I believe it's true? I don't know, but I do. But at least I'm honest and admit that it's just faith. There isn't evidence. Why do I want it more? I don't know that I do want it more or less. I don't know why my brain is this way, but that's how it is. There's the answer to this question from Quora. Why do people of faith want more faith? They probably don't want more faith. It's probably just how their brain is. That's the best answer I can give for this question. Got a foreign nephew who never heard of a God, right? So if somebody never hears about God, then they never have the concept of God. Now, what might happen, possibly, is that eventually they will make it a thing that resembles a God because humans did that. Working together, at some point in the past, we came up with God. Of course, what God was evolved with us through time. I can easily imagine a guy walking the African plains and all of a sudden he gets hit in the head by a rock. A little tiny rock hits him. It hurts. Doesn't kill him. It's not big enough to hit to knock him out. Just a little rock. He's what was that? It's a rock. And so the first thing he does is his adrenaline surges through his body. He's in flight or flight mode. So he hides. And he's looking around, and he is super focused now. He is looking for what threw the rock. Because for him, the only experience he has with rocks hitting his head is when something throws it. Perhaps a monkey, perhaps another human, probably another human. But he doesn't. He looks around, and all this around him is tall grass. And there's no Pokemon in this area, so he's not worried about that. But there's a tree, but it's way far away. So, and besides that, he can see the branches of the tree, and there's nobody and nothing in the branches. So he looks around, nothing through the rock as far as he can see. He looks up. Maybe it was a bird, but there's no birds overhead. But something must have thrown the rock, he thinks. He goes back to his tribe and he tells them this story. Maybe they laugh at him. Maybe they think he's telling, he's joking around. Maybe they come to believe him. They're like, how do we explain that? So they ask the oldest, the shaman, the wise men of the tribe. What is this? Well, obviously, somebody in the sky threw the rock. I didn't see anyone. Obviously, they're invisible. Obviously, before you know it, you have a rock throwing God. And then it changes and develops through time to become more and more complicated. God is on that mountain. Don't go up that mountain. Well, guy goes up the mountain to talk to God. He comes down after talking to God and tells everybody what God told him. No one else is allowed to go up to the mountain, just that one guy. Why am I going to trust that he totally talked to God up there? I'm not, so I'm going to go climb the mountain. Uh-oh. Well, God, he saw you coming. He didn't want to talk to you, so he left the mountain. Now he lives on that mountain over there. All right, let's go to that mountain. Okay, God's in the sky. All right. Let's invent a way to get to the sky. We go to the sky, we see no God. God's in the heaven. Where's the heavens? It's above the sky. We got rocket ships. God's not in space. Where's God? God's outside of space-time. Oh. God is put in a place you cannot go to so that you cannot confirm that it isn't there. Because God is made up by humans for humans. That's my conclusion. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. But even though I conclude that, if you are somebody of faith that happens to listen to this, I still have good things to say about faith. I said earlier, there is a utility to it. As long as you recognize that it's just faith, that it's not logic, that it's emotion, I think that's a little bit more reasonable than believing that there's evidence for it when there isn't evidence for it. Maybe you can't give up the thing you believe in. Maybe that's okay to an extent because maybe your brain just won't let you, and let's not mess with that because who knows what that would do to you. But let's be honest when it comes to saying there is evidence when there isn't. And the Christian God, the weirdest thing is, throughout the Bible, which mentions the word faith, was it 400, 500 times? I don't remember. But it's in there. The word logic isn't. The word math isn't. The word science isn't. The Bible doesn't teach you how to do first aid. Doesn't teach you how anything in the body works. Jesus says don't worry about washing your hands at one point. Doesn't really tell you stuff that you can necessarily apply to the modern world either. In fact, I would dare say, because the Bible is static and it's unupdated, it can't speak to the modern world. So eventually, humanity will outgrow that religion. In fact, humanity will outgrow most religions. But I fear that there will and is already things to replace it. And I've seen people latch onto ideologies, ideas, systems of thinking that they think are useful, but they haven't bothered to actually see if they're useful or not because they feel good. That might be a discussion for another time. Even though I've had that discussion before here on this channel, it's worth having again. Thanks for listening. Let me know in the comments what you want me to cover next. If you find a thing, I'll cover it. Whatever. Until then, listen until we have empirical evidence, a repeatable test, or a valid and sound argument. We should be skeptical of the conclusions.